I figured dropping that check on the table would change everything. 6 years of grinding, saving, and sending cash to keep their heads above water, all wrapped up in one little piece of paper. I walked into my folks' house that morning. Same old sagging porch, same chipped paint on the door, and I had it in my hand. The final payment. Their farm, the one they'd been drowning under since I was a kid, was paid off. Done. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd look at me different. Maybe they'd see me, Jake Tanner, their screw-up son, as something more than a walking wallet. Dad was in his recliner, boots still muddy from the fields, flipping through a seed catalog like it was the Bible. Mom stood at the stove, stirring something that smelled like gravy and regret. I didn't say much at first, just set the check down on the kitchen table, right between the salt shaker and a stack of unpaid bills they hadn't bothered to hide. It's finished, I said, voice steady. The farm's yours, free and clear. Dad didn't even look up. So you think that wipes the slate clean, huh? He grunted, turning a page. Mom kept stirring, but she shot me a glance, those cold blue eyes that could cut glass. Doesn't change who you are, Jacob, she said, real quiet, like she was ashamed to even say it out loud. You're still the same letdown you've always been. I stood there, fingers still brushing the edge of that check. I'd folded it just right, tucked it in my pocket like it was some kind of trophy. I hadn't even taken my jacket off yet. 6 years, 6 damn years, of picking up extra shifts at the warehouse, skipping nights out, eating ramen so I could wire them money every month. And that's what I got. No, thank you. No, we're proud. Just the same old song. Jake's a disappointment. I didn't flinch, though. Not yet. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a second envelope, the real kicker, and slid it across the table. Read it, I said, keeping my tone flat. They didn't move at first. Dad tossed his catalog aside, scowling like I'd interrupted his morning coffee. Mom wiped her hands on her apron and leaned over. They opened it together, and I watched their faces change. Dad's jaw tightened, like he was chewing gravel. Mom's lips parted, just a little, when she hit the second line. They went quiet, pale, even. You didn't, Mom whispered, her voice shaking. Oh, I did, I said, locking eyes with her. Check with the bank if you don't believe me. See, here's the thing. I didn't just pay off their farm. 2 years back, when they were about to lose it for good, I'd refinanced the whole damn thing in my name. They couldn't qualify. Dad's credit was shot from years of bad decisions, and Mom never worked a day since I was born. So I stepped in, took it on, kept paying it down. And now, I'd signed it over. Not to them, but to my cousin Ellie, the only one in this messed-up family who ever gave a damn about me without asking for something in return. Dad stood up, chair scraping the floor. You gave our farm away, he barked. Our home. No, I said, standing my ground. I gave my farm away. Been mine on paper for years. You just didn't notice. Mom clutched the letter like it was a death warrant. You're a traitor, Jake. After everything we've done for you. I almost laughed. Everything you've done? You mean kicking me out at 19? Telling me I was a waste of space every chance you got? That everything. She didn't answer. Dad pointed a finger at me, face red. You think this makes you a big man? Stealing from your own blood? Nah, I said, stepping back toward the door. I think it makes me free. But you're probably wondering how it got here. How a guy like me, the black sheep, the one they always blamed for every damn thing, ended up owning their world just to give it away. It started way back, when I was 22, fresh out of trade school with a job fixing diesel engines. Decent gig, steady pay, nothing fancy. Then Mom called one night, voice all shaky. Your dad's hurt his back again. Work's dried up. We're behind on the farm payments, Jake. We might lose it. Lose the farm. That place was their whole identity. 80 acres of dirt and debt they'd clung to since before I was born. I grew up hearing how it was our legacy, even though I never wanted it. I'll help, I said, because that's what you do, right? Family's family. First payment was a few $100. Then it was every month. Then it was more, feed for the cows, a new tractor tire, electric bills when the power got shut off. I didn't mind at first. Felt good to be needed. But it never stopped. They never said thanks, either, just kept piling it on. You're doing right by us, Mom would say, like I owed them my life. About time you pitched in, Dad would mutter. Pitched in? I was damn near carrying them. And every time I tried to pull back, they'd hit me with the guilt. You'd let us lose everything? Mom would cry. Selfish, just like always, Dad would sneer. So I kept going, year after year, thinking maybe one day they'd see me as more than a paycheck. I was wrong. Dead wrong. And that morning, standing in their kitchen with that envelope, I finally saw it clear as day. They didn't want me to succeed. They wanted me to serve. And when I stopped serving, they'd cut me loose without a second thought. That's what happened 3 years back. Family meeting I wasn't even invited to. My older brother, Travis, called it. Showed up late. Found him sitting there with Mom and Dad, all smug like a damn tribunal. You're not pulling your weight, Jake, Travis said, arms crossed. Never have. Mom nodded. He's right. You're dragging us down. Dad didn't even look at me. Better if you just go. And that was it. 19, no plan, no warning, just out. I crashed on a buddy's couch, got my job back on track, kept sending the money anyway. Why? Hell if I know. Guess I thought it'd prove something. Guess I thought love was bleeding yourself dry for people who'd never do the same. But that day in the kitchen, with their faces going white and their voices cracking, I knew it was over. I'd flipped the script, and they hated it. Not because I'd taken anything from them, but because I'd taken back myself. I turned for the door. Enjoy the farm, I said. Or don't. Ain't my problem anymore. And then I walked out, boots crunching on the gravel, sun just starting to burn off the morning fog. For the first time in years, I didn't feel heavy. I felt alive. I climbed into my truck after walking out that door, the old Ford's engine coughing to life like it was just as tired as I'd been. The sun was climbing higher now, cutting through the haze over the fields, and I rolled the windows down as I pulled out of their driveway. Dust kicked up behind me, swirling in the rearview mirror, and for a second, I caught a glimpse of Mom standing on the porch, arms crossed tight, staring after me. Dad was nowhere in sight, probably back in his recliner, pretending the world hadn't just shifted under his feet. I didn't wave. Didn't look back again, either. Just pressed the gas and let the road take me. My phone started buzzing about a mile down the highway, first Mom, then Travis, then a number I didn't recognize. I let it hum itself silly on the passenger seat, screen lighting up like a damn fireworks show. I wasn't ready to hear their voices yet, wasn't ready for the guilt trips or the threats I knew were coming. I'd seen their faces when they read that letter, shock turning to anger, anger turning to something close to fear. They weren't mad I'd paid off the farm. They were mad I'd taken it out of their hands and handed it to Ellie. And that felt good. Real good. Ellie's my cousin, 5 years older, tough as nails, the kind of woman who'd give you her last dollar, but punch you if you tried to pity her. She'd been there when no one else was. Back when they kicked me out at 19, she was the one who showed up with a six-pack and a sleeping bag, telling me I could crash at her place till I got my feet under me. Family's what you make it, Jake, she'd said, cracking a beer. Not what they tell you it is. She never asked me for a dime, never leaned on me like the rest of them did. So when I refinanced the farm 2 years ago and started thinking about what came next, her name was the only one that made sense. I didn't tell her I was doing it, not till it was done. Called her up last week, after I'd signed the papers at the county clerk's office. Ellie, I said, you got a minute? She laughed, that raspy laugh of hers, and said, for you, kid? Always. I told her the whole deal, how I'd taken the farm into my name, paid it off, and transferred it to her. She went quiet for a long time, then just said, Jake, you're a damn fool. But thank you. Didn't gush, didn't cry, just Ellie being Ellie. Said she'd use it for her boys, maybe rent out the fields to keep things steady. I knew she'd make it work. She always did. Driving now, I let my mind wander back to how it all started piling up. I was 22, still green, working at the garage fixing engines, big rigs mostly, the kind that haul freight cross-country. Pay was solid, benefits were decent, and I liked the work. Hands dirty, brain focused, no bullshit. Then that call from Mom came, the one about Dad's back and the farm payments. We're in a tight spot, Jake, she'd said, voice all wobbly like she was one step from tears. Just till we get back on track. I didn't even think twice. I'll cover it, I said. Felt like the right thing, you know? Like a son stepping up. First month was $400. Next month, $500. Then it was every month, and it wasn't just the mortgage anymore. Cows need hay, Dad would say. Trucks broke down, Mom would add. I'd send the cash, cut corners on my end, cheap coffee, second-hand boots, no weekends at the bar with the guys. Thought I was helping, thought they'd appreciate it. They did, at first. Good boy, Jake, Mom would say, patting my shoulder like I was a kid who'd cleaned his room. Finally doing something worthwhile, Dad would grunt. Worthwhile. That word stuck in my craw, but I swallowed it down. Years went by like that, me working doubles, them leaning harder. Travis, my big brother, never chipped in. He's 34 now, runs a car lot in town, always bragging about his sales numbers. I've got my own life, he'd say whenever I brought it up. You're the one who volunteered. Volunteered? More like got roped in and couldn't find the knot to untie. And Mom and Dad, they'd nod along like he was some damn saint while I was the mule hauling the load. Then came the day I needed something back. Wasn't even big, just a little help. 3 years ago, I blew out my knee on the job. Slipped on some oil, twisted it bad, ended up in surgery. Insurance covered the hospital, but I was off work for a month. Rent stacked up fast, and I'd already drained my savings keeping their farm afloat. So I called Dad. Hey, I said, voice rough from the pain meds, I'm in a bind. Could you spot me a couple hundred for rent? Just this once. He laughed, actually laughed. You're making good money, Jake. Where'd it all go? I've been sending it to you, I said, stunned. For years. Don't throw that in our faces, Mom cut in, sharp as a blade. We didn't force you. You wanted to help. Wanted to? I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, stitches throbbing in my leg, and something clicked. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a tool, one they could toss aside when it wasn't useful anymore. We'd have managed without you, Dad said before hanging up. Managed. Sure. Like they'd managed before I started bailing them out. That's when I started noticing the cracks. Travis posting pictures of a new boat on Facebook, grinning like a damn fool. Mom buying fancy curtains for the farmhouse, showing them off to her church friends. Dad with a shiny new rifle he didn't need. all while I'm eating canned soup and taping up my work gloves 'cause I can't afford new ones. I'd ask about it, and they'd turn it around. You're counting our money now? Dad would snap. That's low, Jake. Low. Like I was the bad guy for wondering where my sweat was going. The real break came a couple months back, at Travis's birthday dinner. He'd rented out a room at some steakhouse, all high and mighty, showing off his new watch. Mom and Dad were there, beaming at him like he'd hung the moon. I showed up late, still in my work shirt, grease under my nails. Sat down, kept quiet till Travis leaned over, smirking. Heard you're still playing bank for Mom and Dad. That's sweet, little brother. Everyone chuckled. Dad grinned. Least he's good for something. I didn't laugh. Just looked at them, Mom with her wine glass, Travis with his Rolex knockoff, Dad with his smug face, and stood up. Paid the last of it last week, I said, voice low. Farm's done. You're welcome. They froze, just for a second. Then Mom shrugged. Guess you're off the hook now, huh? Off the hook? Like I'd been serving a sentence. I nodded, grabbed my coat, and walked out. That's when I knew I wasn't just done helping. I was done begging for their respect. And that letter? That was my way out. Back in the truck, the phone finally stopped buzzing. I pulled into a gas station, filled up, grabbed a coffee, leaned against the hood and watched the cars roll by, thinking about Ellie and her boys, about that farm finally being something good. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt like I could breathe. I didn't go straight home after that gas station stop. Took the long way instead, winding through back roads I hadn't driven since I was a kid, tearing around on a beat-up dirt bike. The air smelled like cut grass and diesel, and the quiet settled in, real quiet, not the tense kind I'd lived with for years. My phone had gone dead from all the buzzing, and I didn't bother plugging it in. Whatever Mom, Dad, or Travis had to say could wait. I'd heard enough of their noise to last a lifetime. Home's a small place now, a one-bedroom apartment above a hardware store in town. Nothing fancy, just creaky stairs and a window that sticks when it rains. But it's mine, paid for with my own cash, no strings attached. I dropped my keys on the counter, cracked a beer, and sat on the couch, a lumpy thing I'd picked up at a yard sale. The check and the letter were still in my jacket pocket, and I pulled them out, staring at the numbers, the signatures. 6 years of my life boiled down to ink and paper. I should have felt mad, maybe even sad. But all I felt was relief, like I'd finally set down a load I didn't even know I was carrying. Next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from Ellie. Jake, you crazy son of a gun, she said, voice crackling through the cheap speaker. I went by the farm today. It's real, deeds in my name, all legal. The boys are losing their minds, talking about building a fort in the barn. I don't know what to say, except you're a damn saint and an idiot all at once. Call me. I smiled, first real smile in days, and dialed her back. Saint? Huh? I said when she picked up. That's a new one. You're something, all right? She laughed. I still can't believe you pulled this off. Your folks know yet? Oh, they know, I said, leaning against the kitchen counter. Watched their faces fall yesterday when I dropped the bomb. She whistled low. But that was a sight. They pissed. Piss don't cover it, I said. Think they're more scared than anything. First time they've ever had to figure shit out without me holding the bag. Good, she said, firm. They've been riding you too long, Jake. Let him sweat. We talked a bit more about our boys, about maybe fixing up the farmhouse. She didn't ask for help, didn't hint at it, and that's why I trusted her with the place. Ellie's the type who'd rather break her back than beg. Before we hung up, she said, you did good, kid. Don't let them tell you different. I didn't say much back, just nodded, even though she couldn't see it. Her words stuck, though. Felt like a lifeline. Work was next, had to clock in at the garage by 8. I was under a semi's hood, wrench in hand, when my buddy Pete sidled up. He's a big guy, all tattoos and beard, been at the shop longer than me. Heard some wild shit from Travis last night, he said, wiping grease off his hands. Said you screwed over your whole family. That true? I kept my eyes on the engine. Depends who's telling it, I said. Paid off their farm, then gave it to my cousin. They're mad 'cause it ain't theirs anymore. Pete laughed, loud and rough. That's cold, man. Ballsy, but cold. Travis was damn near crying at the bar, saying you're a thief. Let him cry, I said, tightening a bolt. He's got a boat and a business. He'll live. Pete slapped my shoulder. You're all right, Tanner. Crazy, but all right. Rest of the day went smooth, fixed 3 rigs, stayed late to help a new kid with a busted alternator. Kept my head down, let the work drown out the noise in my brain. But when I got home, the noise came back. Phone was charged now, and the screen was lit up with texts. Mom, we need to talk, Jacob. This isn't over. Dad, you better fix this, boy, or you'll regret it. Travis, you're dead to me, asshole. I read them once, deleted them, and turned the damn thing off. They could scream into the void all they wanted. I was done listening. That night, I cooked for the first time in forever. Nothing fancy, just eggs and toast, but it felt good to do something normal, something that wasn't about them. Sat at my little table, ate slow, watched the streetlights flicker on outside. Thought about the farm, Ellie's boys running wild in the fields I used to hate. Thought about Mom and Dad, probably huddled in that kitchen, plotting how to guilt me back into line. Thought about Travis, whining to anyone who'd listen. And then I thought about me, Jake Tanner, 31, finally free of their bullshit. I didn't sleep much that night. Not 'cause I was worried, just restless, like my body hadn't caught up with my head yet. Kept replaying that moment in the kitchen, the way their faces crumpled when they realized I'd pulled the rug out. Part of me wanted to feel bad. Years of conditioning, I guess. But it didn't stick. They'd spent my whole life telling me I wasn't enough. Now I'd given them everything they wanted, just not the way they wanted it, and they still couldn't stand me. That wasn't my failure. That was theirs. Next day, I stopped by the bank on my lunch break. Wanted to double-check the transfer, make sure it was ironclad. Tell her was a girl I went to high school with, Marcy, all smiles and curly hair. Heard you're shaking things up, Jake, she said, pulling up the paperwork. Something like that, I said, leaning on the counter. She scanned the screen, nodded. All good here. Deeds filed, transferred to Eleanor Tanner. No liens, no disputes. Clean as a whistle. Thanks, Marcy, I said, feeling that weight lift a little more. Anytime, she grinned. Tell Ellie I said hi. And watch your back. Travis was in here yesterday, asking about loans. Looked pissed. I smirked. He'll get over it. Or he won't. Drove back to work with the radio on, some old country song about losing everything and still standing tall. Felt fitting. I wasn't naive, knew they'd come at me, probably hard. Lawsuits, sob stories, whatever they could throw. But I'd covered my ass, every payment tracked, every paper signed. They could try, but they wouldn't win. Not this time. By the end of the week, word had spread. Guys at the shop were slapping me on the back, calling me a legend. Screwed, am good, Tanner, one said. I didn't feel like a legend, just a guy who'd finally stopped running in circles. But the silence from my family? That was starting to get loud. And I knew it wouldn't last. It took a week for the storm to hit full force. I was at the garage, elbow deep in a transmission, when my phone buzzed hard enough to rattle the toolbox. Wiped my hands on a rag and checked it. Unknown number, but the voicemail icon was blinking. I hit play, and there was Dad's voice, low and mean like a dog about to bite. Jake, you think you're smart? Huh? Giving away what's ours? We're coming for you, boy. Lawyer's already on it. You better lawyer up too, 'cause this ain't over. Click. No, goodbye. No nothing, just that growl I'd known since I was a kid. I stood there, grease streaked up my arms, listening to the shop hum around me, air compressors hissing, Pete yelling at the new guy about torque specs. Part of me wanted to call back, tell him to shove it. But I didn't. Just deleted the message and went back to work. I'd seen this coming, knew they wouldn't let it go quiet. They'd fight dirty, claw at anything to keep control. Thing is, I wasn't scared. Not anymore. Next day, Travis showed up at my place. I was on the stairs, hauling a bag of groceries, when I saw his truck parked crooked in the lot. He leaned against the hood, arms crossed, sunglasses hiding his eyes. Looked like a damn used car salesman ready to pitch a lemon. Hey, little brother, he called, voice dripping with that fake charm he used on customers. Got a minute? Not really, I said, unlocking my door. Say what you gotta say. He followed me up, boots loud on the steps. You screwed us, Jake. You know that, right? Mom's a wreck, Dad's talking lawsuits. And me? I'm stuck cleaning up your mess. I set the groceries on the counter, turned to face him. My mess? Last I checked, I paid off your free ride. What's the problem? The problem, he snapped, yanking off his shades, is you gave our family's farm to Ellie. Some cousin who don't even care about us. That's our blood, our legacy. Legacy? I laughed, short and sharp. You mean the debt I dragged you out of? The one you never lifted a finger for? That farm's been mine on paper for years, Travis. You didn't even notice. His face went red. You tricked them, Mom and Dad. Took advantage of him when they were down. They were down 'cause they couldn't manage a dime, I said, stepping closer. I bailed him out, 6 years, man. Where were you? Oh, right, buying boats and bullshit. He shoved a finger in my chest. You don't get to judge me. I've got a life, a business. You're just a grease monkey with a grudge. Least I ain't a leech. I shot back. Go cry to your lawyer. I'm done talking. He glared, fists clenched, then stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I stood there, heart pounding, but I didn't chase him. Didn't need to. Travis could yell all he wanted. Facts didn't care about his tantrums. 2 days later, I got a call from Ellie. Heads up, she said. Your dad's been sniffing around the farm. Showed up yesterday, pounding on the door, saying it's still his. Scared the boys a little. Shit, I muttered, rubbing my face. You okay? Yeah, I handled it, she said. Told him to get off my property, or I'd call the sheriff. He left, but he was spitting mad. Said something about a court date. Thanks for the heads up, I said. I'll deal with it. Jake, she said, softer now. You sure about this? They're coming hard. I'm sure, I said. They can't touch it. It's yours, legal and locked. Let him try. She sighed. All right. Just watch yourself, okay? Always, I said and hung up. That night, I dug out all my paperwork, every payment receipt, every bank statement, the refinance docs, the deed transfer. Spread it across my table like a war map. I wasn't a lawyer, but I kept everything tight. They could sue, sure, but they'd lose. I made damn sure of that. Monday morning, a letter showed up, official looking, from some law firm in town. Notice of intent to contest property transfer. It said, full of legal jargon about undue influence and familial rights. I read it twice, then called Ellie. They're serious, I said. Filed something. Let M. She said, calm as ever. I talked to a guy I know, lawyer friend. Says they've got no case. You paid it, you owned it, you gave it. End of story. Hope he's right, I said, staring at the letter. He is, she said. They're just swinging 'cause they're scared. Hold tight. I did, went to work, kept my head down. Pete asked about it over lunch. Your old man really suing you? Trying to, I said, biting into a sandwich. Won't stick. He grinned. You're a badass, Tanner. Most guys cave. Ain't about caving, I said. Just tired of bending. That week, the rumors flew. Guys at the shop said Travis was telling everyone I'd stolen the farm out of spite. Mom was crying to her church group, playing the victim. Dad was at the bar, swearing I'd pay. I let it roll off. Didn't have the energy to fight gossip. But then Friday hit, and I got a knock on my door. 2 cops, standing there stiff, badges glinting. Jacob Tanner? One said. Yeah, I said, gut tightening. You're served, he said, handing me a thick envelope. Court dates next month. Families contesting a property transfer. I took it, nodded. Thanks. They left, and I ripped it open. Summons, affidavits, the works. Mom and Dad claiming I'd manipulated them. Travis saying I'd breached trust. All bullshit, but there it was in black and white. I sat down, cracked another beer, and laughed. Not 'cause it was funny, but 'cause it was so damn predictable. They couldn't win with facts, so they'd try tears and lies. I called Ellie again. It's on, I said. Court next month. Bring it, she said. We've got this, Jake. And for the first time, I believed it. They'd started the fight, but I'd finish it. Court was a month away, but the war started right then. I spent that weekend at my table, papers spread out, going over every detail like a mechanic tearing down an engine. Every wire transfer, every canceled check, 6 years of proof I'd held that farm together while they sat back and judged me. I wasn't a lawyer, didn't have fancy words, but I had facts, and facts don't bend. Ellie came by Sunday with coffee and donuts, her boys in tow, 2 wiry kids, 8 and 10, all energy and grins. Uncle Jake, the younger one, Sam, yelled, tackling my legs. Mom says you gave us a farm. I ruffled his hair. Something like that, bud. Ellie set the food down, eyeing my mess. You're ready for this, right? Ready as I'll be, I said, sipping the coffee. They're throwing everything, lies mostly. Saying I tricked them. She snorted. Tricked them into taking your money? That's rich. Yeah, I said, flipping through the summons. Claim I pressured him, took advantage. Travis even says I owe him 'cause he's family. Travis can kiss my ass, she said. Loud enough the boys giggled. He's just mad he can't sell it off for a new toy. We sat there, sorting papers, her boys playing some game with a rubber ball against my wall. Ellie's lawyer friend had sent over advice. Keep it simple, stick to the timeline, show the payments. They'll lean on emotion, she said, reading his notes. Sob stories about losing their home. But the law's on our side. Good, I said, 'cause I ain't got tears to sell. Work kept me sane that week. Long hours under hoods, hands busy, mind clear. Pete and the guys ribbed me about being a legal eagle now, but they had my back. Need a character witness? Pete offered one day, grinning. I'll tell him you're a stubborn bastard but honest. Might take you up on that, I said, half serious. Then Mom called. Middle of a shift, phone buzzing in my pocket. I stepped outside, answered 'cause I figured I'd have to face it sometime. Jacob, she said, voice all shaky like she'd rehearsed it. Why are you doing this to us? Doing what? I said, leaning against the shop wall. Given you a free farm for years? You stole it, she said, sharp now. Gave it to Ellie like we're nothing. We raised you, fed you. And I paid you back, I cut in. More than you ever gave me. 6 years, Mom. What did you do with it? Silence, then a sniffle. We're your family. How can you turn on us? Family don't kick you out and bleed you dry, I said. You turned on me first. She hung up, and I went back to work, hands steady but chest tight. She'd always been good at that, twisting the knife, making me feel like the bad guy. Didn't work this time. I knew the truth, and I had the receipts. Next day, I met Ellie's lawyer friend, Tom, a wiry guy with glasses and a handshake like a vice. We sat at a diner, papers between us. They've got no legs, he said, scanning their claims. You paid every dime, refinanced legally, transferred it clean. They're banking on a judge feeling sorry for him. They're good at that, I said, stirring my coffee. Playing victims. Doesn't matter, he said. Judge will see the numbers. You're solid, Jake. Just tell your story straight. Appreciate it, I said. He waved off the thanks, said Ellie'd already squared him up with a favor. That's how she was, always even, never owing. The weeks dragged on, tension building. Travis posted online, some rant about betrayal and thieves in the family. Got a few likes from his buddies, but most folks stayed quiet. Town small, people knew the score, knew I'd been the one keeping that farm alive. Dad stopped by the garage once, just stood in the lot staring till Pete chased him off. Your old man's unhinged, Pete said later. What's his deal? Lost his leverage, I said. Don't know what to do without it. Court day crept closer, and I kept my routine. Work, home, repeat. Ellie checked in, said the boys were sketching plans for that fort. They're calling it Fort Tanner, she laughed. Your legacy now. Better than the old one, I said, grinning. Night before the hearing, I sat up late, papers packed, ready. Thought about Mom's call, Dad's threats, Travis's whining. Thought about 19-year-old me, sleeping on Ellie's couch, wondering why I wasn't enough. Then I thought about now, 31, standing tall, no more chains. I slept good that night, better than I had in years. Morning came, and I drove to the courthouse, truck rattling over potholes. Parked, grabbed my folder, walked in. Ellie was there, waiting on the steps. Ready to kick ass? She said, smirking. Damn right, I said, and we went inside together. Mom, Dad, and Travis were across the hall, huddled with a slick-looking lawyer. They didn't look at me, just whispered, faces hard. I didn't care. I had my truth, my proof, and Ellie beside me. Whatever they threw, I'd take it and throw it back harder. Court day hit like a freight train, gray sky, cold wind, the kind of morning that makes you want to stay in bed. But I was up early, coffee strong, truck idling as I drove to the courthouse. Ellie met me there, her boys with her mom for the day. She wore jeans and a flannel, looking more like a farmer than I ever did. Nervous? She asked, falling in step as we climbed the steps. Nah, I lied, adjusting my folder. Just want it over. Inside, it smelled like old wood and dust. Mom, Dad, and Travis were already there, sitting with their lawyer, a guy in a cheap suit who kept adjusting his tie like it was choking him. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes, just stared at her hands. Dad glared straight ahead, jaw tight. Travis shot me a smirk, like he thought he'd already won. I ignored him, took my seat beside Ellie and Tom. Judge was an older woman, gray hair pulled back, no-nonsense vibe. She called the case, Tanner versus Tanner, and it felt weird hearing my name like that, like I was some stranger fighting myself. Their lawyer went first, standing up all dramatic. Your Honor, he said, this is a case of betrayal. Jacob Tanner manipulated his struggling parents, took their family farm, and gifted it to a cousin out of spite. We're asking for the transfer to be reversed and damages awarded. He went on, painted Mom and Dad as helpless old folks, me as a scheming bastard who'd preyed on their trust. Said I'd coerced them into letting me refinance, that I'd hidden the truth. Mom dabbed her eyes with a tissue, right on cue. Dad nodded along, looking wounded. Travis chipped in when called, saying I'd robbed him of his inheritance. It was a hell of a show, Oscar-worthy if it wasn't so damn fake. Tom stood up next, calm and steady. Your Honor, he said, facts don't match their story. Jake Tanner didn't steal anything. He saved it. For 6 years, he paid the mortgage on that farm, hundreds of thousands out of his own pocket, while his family contributed nothing. When they couldn't qualify to refinance, he did it legally in his name to keep it from foreclosure. Then he transferred it to Eleanor Tanner, free and clear. Every step's documented. He laid it out, receipts, bank records, the refinance agreement, the deed transfer. Handed the judge a stack thick enough to choke on. They're not victims, he said. They lived off Jake's work, then turned on him when he stopped serving. This isn't about rights, it's about resentment. Judge didn't say much, just flipped through the papers, her face blank. Then she called me up. I walked to the stand, swore in, sat down. Their lawyer came at me first, all smug. Mr. Tanner, he said, did you tell your parents you were taking ownership when you refinanced? Didn't have to. I said, keeping it simple. They asked me to fix it, said they'd lose the place. I did. Papers were filed public. They could have checked. So you admit you hid your intentions? Didn't hide nothing, I said. Paid every bill, kept them afloat. They didn't care till I gave it away. He pushed, asked why I'd cut out my brother, why I'd hurt my folks. I kept it straight. Travis never paid a dime. Mom and Dad kicked me out years ago, didn't want me till I had cash. I gave the farm to Ellie cause she's family that don't use me. Tom took over, walked me through it. When I started paying, how much, why I transferred it. Was this spite Jake, he asked. Nope, I said. Was tired of carrying him. Ellie deserved it. Never asked me for nothing. I stepped down, legs steady. Ellie went next, told the same story, how I'd saved the farm, how she'd never expected it, but was grateful. Their lawyer tried to trip her up, but she didn't budge. Jake's the only one who ever showed up for me, she said, voice firm. They didn't. Judge called a recess, and we waited in the hall. Ellie bumped my shoulder. You did good up there. Felt like a damn monkey in a suit, I said, loosening my tie. She laughed. Still kicked ass. Mom walked by then, stopped a few feet away. Jacob, she said, voice soft. You can still fix this. Drop it, give us the farm back. We'll forget it all. I looked at her, really looked. Same woman who'd called me worthless, who'd let me walk out at 19 without a word. Ain't mine to give, I said. And I ain't forgetting. She walked away, and I felt nothing, no guilt, no pull. Just done. Back in, the judge ruled fast. Evidence is clear, she said. Jacob Tanner legally owned the property, paid for it, transferred it validly. No coercion, no fraud. Plaintiffs have no claim. Case dismissed. Their lawyer sputtered, but she shut him down. Mom let out a sob, real or fake. I couldn't tell. Dad stormed out, Travis trailing him, cursing under his breath. I just sat there, Ellie's hand on my shoulder, letting it sink in. We'd won. Outside, the air hit cold and clean. Ellie hugged me, quick, fierce. You're free, Jake, she said. Really free. Yeah, I said, breathing deep. Guess I am. Drove home slow, windows down, radio off. Thought about the farm, Ellie's now, her boy's future. Thought about Mom and Dad, Travis, their anger. They'd lost more than a deed. They'd lost their grip on me. And me? I'd gained something better. Peace. Weeks after court, life settled into something new, quiet, steady, mine. I'd wake up to birds outside my window, not my phone screaming with demands. Work was the same, grease and engines, but it felt lighter, like I wasn't dragging a shadow behind me. The shop guys still razzied me about beating the family, but it had turned into a badge of sorts. Tanner the Titan, Pete called me, laughing. I'd just shake my head and keep working. Ellie sent pictures, her boys at the farm, hammering boards into that fort they dreamed up. Fort Tanner's taking shape, she texted. You're their hero, Jake. I didn't feel like a hero, just a guy who'd done what he could. But seeing those kids grinning, swinging from a rope in the barn, hit me hard. That place was theirs now, safe, solid, not a weight to carry, but a home to grow in. That's what I'd wanted. Mom and Dad went dark after the ruling. No calls, no texts, just silence. Travis popped off online for a bit, vague posts about justice and snakes, but even that fizzled out. Word around town was they'd moved into a rental, some boxy little place near the highway. Farm was gone from them for good, and I reckon that stung more than they'd admit. Part of me wondered if they'd ever see it, how they'd pushed me till I broke free. Probably not. They'd always been better at blaming than building. One night, I ran into an old buddy, Kyle, at the gas station. We played ball together back in school, lost touch after. Heard about your folks, he said, pumping gas. That true? You gave their place away? Paid it off first, I said, leaning on my truck. Then yeah, gave it to Ellie. He whistled. Man, that's wild. They pissed. Still are, I said. But it's done. You're tougher than I thought, he said, grinning. Always figured you were the quiet one who'd take it forever. Guess I got tired of taking, I said, and he nodded like he got it. That stuck with me, quiet one. I'd been that kid, head down, trying to earn a nod from Mom or Dad. Never got it. Took me till 31 to see I didn't need it. Now, I was just Jake, guy with a truck, a job, a life I'd carved out myself. A month later, Ellie threw a barbecue at the farm. Invited me, some neighbors, her boys running wild with a couple dogs she'd taken in. I pulled up, saw smoke rising from a grill, smelled burgers and cedar. She waved me over, handed me a beer. To Fort Tanner, she said, clinking bottles. To the boys, I said, and we drank. Watched Sam and his brother chase each other through the fields, laughing like kids should. Later, she pulled me aside. Got a call from your mom, she said, voice low. Yeah, I said, tensing. Wanted to know if I'd give it back now that they'd lost, she said. Told her it ain't mine to give, it's the kids. She didn't like that. Figures, I said, shaking my head. They'll never quit. Nope, she said. But you did. That's what matters. We stood there, sun dipping low, fields stretching out gold and green. I thought about 6 years ago, me at 25, wiring money, hoping for a good job, Jake. Thought about 19, walking out that door with nothing but a duffel. Then now 31, free, watching kids play on land I'd saved. Full circle, but different. Winter came, and I kept living cooked bad chili, fixed my faucet, took a weekend trip to the coast. No guilt, no calls, just me. One morning, a letter showed up, no return address, just my name scrawled on it. Inside, one line. You were right to walk away. No signature, but I knew Mom's handwriting. I stared at it, folded it, tucked it in a drawer. Didn't need it, didn't change nothing, but it felt like an end. Spring rolled in, and Ellie called. Boys want you to see the fort, she said. Finished it last week. I drove out, found him proud as hell, showing off rickety stairs and a rope swing. Uncle Jake. Sam yelled. It's the best. Damn right it is, I said, climbing up with him. Sat there, legs dangling, looking out at the farm, Ellie's farm, their farm. Mine once, in a way, but not anymore. And that was okay. Driving home, windows down, I felt solid, rooted, not to a place or a name, but to myself. They tried to break me, use me, own me. Didn't work. I'd built something better, not a legacy of debt, but one of freedom. And for the first time, I knew I was enough.